Welcome to the program. On the program today, discussion segment, we'll be looking at what I'll describe as a developing story. Matters arising following the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen. For information, what is on the public domain, a kind of misconception. Some say he has been removed. The Chief Justice of Nigeria has not been removed from office. He has been suspended from office, pending the determination of the case against him. If he is adjudged innocent, he will ultimately return back to office. So we shall be looking at matters arising following that development. And on media review segment, Ceci?
Yeah, on the media review segment today, we shall revisit, due to popular demand, an issue we discussed some months back on SMEs visibility in Nigeria. We believe you are going to enjoy it. So that's going to be on our media review segment.
Sometime I went out of the shores of Nigeria and I got a wonderful shoe from an SME. Are you going to look at that?
I actually, a year or two back, I went to this Made in Aba fair and I bought a handbag and a shoe. And trust me, it's still very strong and very good. But I talked to the young man about expanding his business, exporting it. He says that yes, he hopes that the government will help give him more grants to help expand the business, and hope foreigners come in to also support it. So I think we're doing really well, and very soon we'll be exporting some of these things.
Well, besides the SME revolution, matters arising on the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So it promises to be very, very insightful. Don't stray steps away. Up next in the program is the discussion segment. Don't go away. Three psychologists and a behavioral scientist sometime in February 2017 came up with a perspective within the criminal justice system in Nigeria. They said the lack of credibility on the part of the criminal justice system in Nigeria, the implementers, the enforcers like the police, lawyers, judges, the Nigeria Prisons and Immigration Service, Customs, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the ICPC, that in the administration of criminal justice system and the law, they are responsible for an avalanche of social injustice, lack of discipline, and lawlessness in Nigeria. They went on to say that the supposed custodian of the law is largely indicted for being responsible for the ineffectiveness of the system in criminal behavioral control. The criminal justice system is essential for any civilized system to ensure justice, fairness, the practice of the rule of law, and institutionalization of the democratic system. If there is transparency in the criminal justice system, what happens and how can it be done? How can transparency be achieved in the criminal justice system in Nigeria? That is the scenario. Now, our concern for this segment of the program is matters arising regarding the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. It is not yet over. It is a developing story. A lot of description has been given. It is unprecedented. It is a coup against the judiciary, claims and counterclaims. Some say it's a welcome development. European Union, the United Kingdom, and United States of America have all reacted. Now, a lot has been said regarding this case. Well, we'll do a jigsaw of it. I have two gentlemen, two lawyers, Johannes Toby Wojola, Esquire, constitutional lawyer. Thanks for joining me on Inside.
The pleasure is mine.
Also, Aliyu Abdullahi, lawyer and policy analyst. Thanks for joining me on Inside.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we were not here to look at whether due process or no due process. A lot of things have come up. It's a developing story. New faces, old faces, relapse, all this we'll see in a few days. People have been called for protests, all that. But we are in Nigeria. And the picture clearly is that the indivisibility of Nigeria will remain sacrosanct here.
Absolutely.
Let me start this way. Given the developments on ground, pros, cons, what attitude should Nigeria from all the divide exhibit in this matter? Let me start with you.
Primarily, I would want to look at this issue from the President Buhari point of view. He's the leader here and more or less the orchestrator of all that we are seeing here. When the former general and now president campaigned in 2014, 2015. He campaigned on 3 promises: to secure the country, to rejuvenate a more or less moribund economy, and to fight corruption. Let us narrow it down to fight corruption. And remember that Nigerians voted him largely because there was the need to uproot a dirty system, a system that had been taken over by riffraffs, by people who were putting their hands into the purse, who were desecrating the system of governance. And Nigerians voted this man to fight corruption, of which corruption has become more or less a transactional item in our lives. That we cannot even, you go to a civil servant's office and it's expected that there must be some form of oiling before work is done. You go to collect, or you apply for a contract, and it is expected that you must settle from bottom down, or bottom up. The system had become more or less desecrated by corruption. And then we have a president who has said, I want to take this as my mandate to fight corruption. And we need to avert our minds to the fact that corruption is not just in the executive. It is in all 3 arms of government, and aside even the everyday transactions the Nigerians the Nigerians face. Now we have come to the judiciary. Recall that earlier on in this same government, the president, the security agencies took on some judges, arrested them, and charged them to court. Some of the cases are still in court. Now today, we have the overall head of the entire system, the judiciary, the 3rd arm of government, confessing to have made mistakes in the submissions of his assets. That in itself falls under corrupt practices. That in itself presents a moral issue, presents a moral question. And now, placing it side by side, the Nigerian people, we must ask ourselves, are we going to allow a serious moral defecation of the hallowed judicial chambers? Or we want to play sentiments, or ask ourselves needless questions about elections, or about where does he come from, or who is next in line, why was he removed at this time? No, the question is, there is a moral issue here. There is an issue of a man who has confessed to being on the side of wrong, or to have erred. And that error is so fundamental because this is a man who oversees the determination of right and wrong of other people. So you have a Chief Justice of the Federation who has sent people to jail on the same offense that he is sitting on. It's a moral issue, and it's an issue that Nigerians must look at from a perspective of morality. And at that point, Nigerians must look at it as a necessary purge that must take place in the judiciary. And it is starting top bottom at this point in time, from the hierarchy, the highest point, and it must happen. Because if it doesn't happen, we will continue to have an issue with the judiciary, which should ordinarily be the last hope of the common man. Okay. And when you take that away, you now have justice for sale. There is no way the justice will be for sale, or the judiciary will be corrupted, and that a country system will stand. It will collapse. So like I said, it's a developing story, and a lot of dimensions are coming up on a daily basis. Now, so when thinking proactively, without necessarily being prejudicial or letting the cat out of the bag, what should we be expecting from NJC's meeting, and what should we be expecting from the National Assembly meeting?
You see, you have to start from the very beginning, actually. what will have been the procedure, you know.
Yeah, that's why I said we don't want to go into the issue of due process.
Yeah.
We're moving on.
But yes, in moving on, you cannot also jettison what happened, so that people should be informed and enlightened, actually, whether the suspension of the by the president was actually legal and also moral. And you see, that's a very good question, because I've had so many analysts, other places, you know, say this and that. Everybody can come to court of public opinion with their own analysis, but the issue remained that the president's action was legal and was also moral. Why was it legal? The president acted, you know, under a valid court order from a constituted tribunal, you know, and the president is obliged to actually respect that order, and he did so. Now, some people may likely argue, and don't forget, I don't want us to be saying removal, because the CJN was not removed. He was just suspended, temporary setting aside. The president didn't remove the CJN. What he did was to respect a court order, step aside, pending the termination of your case, because the country, we will do it right if you continue to occupy such an exalted position when you have a question that borders on criminal aspects, moral issue hanging on your neck. No wonder we saw a lot of court orders coming to the tribunal, you know, placing a kind of hindrance on the smooth adjudication of this case by the Court of Conduct Tribunal. We have had courts of coordinate jurisdiction issuing orders. In fact, even National Industrial Court that has nothing to do with the whole entire issue. Court of Appeal, when a judgment or an order has not been done, yet issuing a stay of proceeding. When this matter, the breach of Code of Conduct, you know, provision is a criminal matter, because it attracts sanctions or punishment, even up to several penalties, leaving office, and even jail term. So when you have something like that, the ACJA, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, comes into play, and Section 306 of that ACJA say when any court is actually adjudicating a crime, an offense, no any court shall order a stay of proceedings. And the Supreme Court, under the same Justice Walter Onange, approved and initiated that particular provision of the SCGA. But here we are, the tribunal is trying the case, and then we have several court orders. Now you ask me why? Why will a high court, federal high courts, Court of Industrial Action, and even a Court of Appeal issue orders when they knew they shouldn't do that? Because they are unduly influenced. Because the head of the judiciary is the person in question that is facing this particular trial. Now, it presents a moral burden, just like Johannes said earlier, and that is the issue at the determination. Ordinarily, the NJC, the National Judicial Council, should have taken this issue over this issue. But what happened? When they wanted to do that, at its 8th meeting, called actually earlier to be held on January 15, what happened? The same CJN, the suspect in this matter, an accused person with all due respect, he actually adjourned the meeting indefinitely. There was no way they could actually, he was the convener of the meeting, and he said, no, do not come. Then what option is left? The NJC can't actually discipline, can't even consider the issue. The courts as issuing orders that were not legal. The tribunal was asked to stay proceedings, even though it's against the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. That was the situation the judiciary found itself and Nigerian people, but people didn't know that.
Okay.
Now the president has to come in through this court order. And now, what has the president done wrong in doing that? He has served the judiciary. He has served the country's democracy. If anything, people should actually applaud President Muhammadu Buhari for doing what he did. He has saved us. And let me tell you, the international committees you mentioned, they are just actually concerned about the timing.
We'll get
but
to that.
Now to answer your question, what should we expect the NJC as they are meeting currently as we're recording this program? I expected that the NJC will do the needful, and that needful, looking at this issue, the principle of natural justice of Nemo Jude and Kasasua will come into play at the NJC meeting.
Okay.
Meaning, you cannot be a judge in your own case.
Okay.
The CJN, and as the chairman of NJC, cannot sit in his own case. So, the best thing to do by the NJC is to also recommend that the CJN should step aside, just like the president respected the court order of the tribunal.
And this stepping aside is not a removal, it's a suspension.
It's not a removal, because removal has other consequences. But suspension means that you can still come back if, after the determination of your case, you are proven innocent and not guilty. And the second question you did, let me answer the issue of the National Assembly, the Senate reconvening to look at this issue. First, I will have asked, where was the Senate in the first place when this issue came up, and when courts of coordinate jurisdiction with the tribunal were issuing illegal orders to the tribunal? Why didn't they reconvene at that time? That is the first question. Secondly, what can the Senate do? The Senate, cannot sit to review what President Muhammadu Buhari did. And this is why. Because they are not a bench. They are not a court. Only a court.
But somehow they have a role to play in the Constitution.
The only thing they can play here, they will review the entire issue. They can offer an advice, but that is at best what they could do. Because, like I said, they are not a court. President Muhammadu Buhari carried out that suspension in obedience to a court order.
Okay.
So only a court.
Yeah, let me just hold it there.
The Court of Appeal that will sit and hear whether that action was right or wrong.
Let me take off from where he stopped. Court order. This court order thing has generated so much reactions too. Yes, there's a court order, but the question keeps coming. When did the court order come? Where did it transmit from? What can you say about it? But very important here, there are two arguments on the streets or in the public domain, which is some persons have misconstrued this, like Ali has said that the CJN has been removed. But he has confirmed it's not a removal, it is a suspension. There are two different pictures there. So let's talk to the court order now. Some say it came from the back door, it was not properly done. So
I wish I could read the court order here, but I don't have it.
Okay, just
printed.
go ahead.
It was a simple order from the, more or less, I will term it an order of mandamus. It somewhat has that picture, and which is an order to a public official to do his duty. The power of the president is as enshrined in the Constitution with regards to the Chief Justice and other justices explicitly is to appoint and to remove a chief judge or justice. It gives the conditions for this either of these actions, and of course one of such conditions is on breach of a code of conduct or breach of code of conduct. But in addendum to the powers that are explicitly stated is the position of the Interpretation Act, which in itself is an act interpreting the Constitution as contained in Section 318, I think sub 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. And what does that provision say in the Interpretation Act, Section 11 of the Interpretation Act, is that the power, if there were an enactment, confers power to appoint that power would also include the power to remove and the power to suspend. So,
what the removal power
has not been exercised. It has not been exercised.
Okay.
The suspension power is the one that has been exercised. And that is where the CCT, the Code of Conduct Tribunal, relied on, where it issued the order and gave the order to the president. You have the power by virtue of Section 11 of the Interpretation Act to suspend an appointee of your government or a person who you appointed, vis-a-vis the appointment clause which is contained in the Constitution. I think Section 328 or something like that, in the appointment of the Chief Justice of the Federation. What we now have, so what we now have is an order that was issued and based on a motion that was filed and sought by, I believe, the Attorney General of the Federation. I've not seen any legal lacuna or legal sophistry that has taken place.
For some persons who are arguing the fact that the coup against the judiciary in Nigeria, view from the perspective that the head of the judiciary is not just an ordinary appointee.
No, you see that at that moment,
which is the
moment we have to go back to what we call the entire items of the rule of law. One of those items is equality before the law. Okay. That means no man is above the law. And the closest that a man becomes a Caesar's wife, above the law, is a provision, I think, in Section 315, that grants immunity to 2 categories or 3 categories of people. 308, sorry. One, the president and his vice. Governors and their deputies, 2 categories of people. And those are the only people in the whole of the heavens and Nigeria that are granted immunity from prosecution. So they have as long as the Chief Justice of Nigeria is a citizen of this country and committed an offense in this country and has even admitted to it, he falls under the law, and then the law must take its place. No matter what happens,
but he heads an
arm of government does not make him subject to Section 308. Only 2 categories of people are subject to Section 308, and it is within the executive.
Thank you.
So that means this legislature and the judiciary, their heads and their members, are not given any immunity from prosecution.
Thank you.
We must understand that.
Moving on. I'm happy the 2 of you are lawyers, and a lot of persons will expect that it is the learned personalities in Nigeria, the lawyers. Now we should give good direction to this. But now you have within the bench, within the bar, people with various perspectives to this matter on ground. Now, why would somebody imagine, given the scenario Johannes has painted, that there's a coup against the judiciary in Nigeria?
Well,
why would somebody imagine that?
Let me tell you something. Simply...
But do you agree it is a coup against the judiciary?
Of course not. If anything, what President Muhammadu Buhari did was actually to protect the sanctity of the bench, of the judiciary. And this is why, let me tell you, when we were students of law, learning law, whether at LLB level or at law school, we were taught the bench, the justices, are people that must be unblemished, untainted. It is only the profession that we consider as next to God. The Chief Justice should sit next to God in dispensing justice. It's not a something that you actually take with any form of joke. The judiciary must be squeaky clean, not only clean, must be seen to be that. Anything short of that, then there is problem. Now, I say President Muhammad Buhari's move has saved the judiciary. And that is what a lot of people don't see. Those one calling for the that there was coup on the judiciary, they are just being there are three categories of people. Either the naive ones, the political mischievous ones, and people who are paid by this set of category of corrupt people in the judiciary, even in our bar. It's no secret that the bar where we come from and the judiciary, the bench, are filled of corrupt people. Lawyers bribe judges to buy judgments. It's no secret in Nigeria. You will see courts issuing orders in the dead of the night, contradictory orders from courts of coordinate jurisdiction. It's happening, especially in a political season. What will you say about that? How can someone just procure an order in the night?
So why will you say it's not a coup now against the judiciary?
That is what I'm telling you.
Contention.
There is a rot within the judiciary. That is what Yohannes opened this thing with. That this corruption does not only permeate within the executive alone or the legislature, but it also permeates the judiciary. And that this action by the president, rather than see it as a coup against judiciary, Nigerians must see it not principally as a fight against corruption, as a fight to protect the integrity and sanctity of the bench, which is exactly what it is. And I'm sure by the time the NJC finishes its meeting, they will return a similar verdict like the one that the president has passed. There is just not two ways about it.
Okay.
You cannot, I repeat, sit as the chief judge of the country when you have questions bordering on criminal offense and forgetting mistakes is not a defense in criminal law of the country. Now that is the issue. Let me come.
Okay.
So, you see, the entire thing here now is Nigerians must learn to see things objectively. We must not allow the politicians to twist what is very transparent, what was done in the interest of our country and the progress of an important arm of the government. That is very important. But when we listen to politicians who have sub-motives, who link an otherwise clean action, patriotic action by the president to politics, giving it sentiment, coloring it with something like the president has the benefit when he is just trying. If it is a matter of optics, I will tell you, very few presidents in the world will take the direction President Muhammad Buhari has done, because if anything, it's gonna actually bring him so much heat.
Let me hold you there.
A lot of presidents facing elections will not dare do such a brave act.
Let me hold you there. Now, Yohannes, for a very long time, an issue has not generated so much controversy in Nigeria like this one. Everybody, now let's speak to the reaction by the international community. Though the presidency has also reacted, and they have said that, well, they commend the concern by the United Kingdom, concern by the European Union, and the concern by the United States of America. Now, given the reaction by these three big powers in the world, let's speak to it.
There's this quote that says that for you to be a leader, you must be ready to take unpopular decisions. You must be ready to take the decisions that people have looked at and said, let us pass this over, let us leave this, it's too much. It was needed and it had to be done. Coming now to the international community, I think the biggest error they made was to talk before they thought, to talk before studying the facts. They were too hasty to comment. Anybody who had looked and studied the case from the legal angle, from the moral angle, no matter your bias,
one will expect that maybe
they would have kept quiet.
Their own interests.
No, whatever interest, they would have kept quiet. It would have been, there would have been wisdom in silence. To know that an issue as fundamental as a rot in the judiciary, a confessed to rot, if it was that this was an allegation that has not been confessed to, because recall that the Chief Justice of the Federation admitted that yes, I did not do this, I forgot, it was a mistake. I think their comments are coming too hasty. They're coming without understanding the situation. And let us also take it back to them. Would the American system, as with the independent structures of the Bureau of Investigation, the criminal justice system, the executive and legislature, will it allow a Chief Justice, the man who leads and heads the entire judiciary of the United States of America, to be found wanting and having confessed to it as well? Would he be allowed to remain in office, either by the legislature or even by the head of the executive arm? Action will be taken certainly, and Nigeria would not interfere. Nigeria would not at any point in time drop any comments to say we are concerned about your removal of your Chief Justice. I think they are playing busybody and they are playing watchman when they have not watched themselves. Look at America, which is currently backing some illegitimate acts happening in Venezuela. Do we want to also go to the UK? The UK has Brexit to face. Let it face its business. And Nigeria has even said, the government of Nigeria has made a statement and said, we'll support you with Brexit. Support, but don't interfere. At that point in time, we need to understand, at this point in time, we need to understand that there are norms, there are rules, there are customs of international engagement. And I think the European Union, the United States of America, and the UK exceeded the line that was set in the interactions in international community. What they should have done is kept quiet and appreciated the situation better. Okay. From the statement, they raised an issue. Let me say, they raised an issue on that this had to do with the elections. That was mind-boggling, because you now ask yourself: is there a time to arrest a criminal? Is there a wrong time to do right? I think they did not think through their statements, and it was very irresponsible.
Okay. Some persons, some opinion reason that this whole action, he has touched it briefly, was not properly timed. When could it be the best time for it?
Well, let me tell you something, Amini.
That given the fact that I know they have tied it to elections, they have tied it to this, but that they would have maybe waited after elections. When could it be the best time?
I understand what you're
saying. By
our own
professional knowledge.
You see, that's the thing. There is no any time that the right thing should be done. You can, under our laws, you can arrest, or start the criminal proceedings of anybody who has been suspected to have committed an offense on a Christmas day, on a Saturday, on a Sunday. There is nothing to say this is not the right day or the right time. Just because we have weeks to the election doesn't mean the law shouldn't and cannot be followed, like I said, for optics. If it is for optics, perhaps a weaker president wouldn't have taken the direction President Muhammadu Buhari has taken, because he knew there was going to be hate. And this is a man who doesn't do political correctness. He doesn't do optics. He does what he believes is the right thing for the country. And that is why majority of the people of this great country voted him into power in 2015. That is the conviction a lot have on the person of President Muhammadu Buhari even moving forward, even from this scandal.
Okay.
Now, the international communities, you know, it's not peculiar to Nigeria what really happened. In Ghana, about 6 judges were actually of the Supreme Court were actually suspended for similar issue.
We're talking about Nigeria. Let's see Nigeria.
In Kenya, a deputy chief justice of the Supreme Court was also suspended and fired.
Because the laws there are not the laws.
In West Virginia,
Similar
in the United States of America, in the United States of America, a chief judge of West Virginia was also fired in a similar fashion. I didn't read a statement from the United Kingdom or from the EU about those particular incidences. Now, you see, what they did, their comments, their statements, was in itself a meddlesome affair. It's good, like you said, to have an interest for the country as allies, as friends for the country. I agree with that. I even agree that they can actually have weigh in on the statement, but the conclusive nature of their statement and where they were headed was actually what was wrong from those statements. They shouldn't have concluded about the category of people who were calling that due process of constitutionalism wasn't followed in the suspension of the CJN. I believe it was an error in their judgment for them to have concluded on that basis, because like we have enumerated here over the last 40 minutes or so, we believe the president stand on a firm ground of the law in what he did. And like I told you, let's continue to watch the outcome of the NJC's meeting.
Beautiful.
It will validate the president's action. I believe so.
When there's a developing story, you expect that as the hours roll in, as the days roll by, we see various angles to it. This whole thing has generated a lot of interest, has generated a lot of concerns. Political parties, politicians, CBOs, NGOs, security agencies. Now, let's speak to the institutions. What advice will you have to the various institutions? Because as it is now, we have institutions in place that should be the ones to guide the process, to guide the polity, to guide the government. Let's speak to that.
For me, one, follow the rule of law. Nobody should be above the law, even while you respect the human rights of people. Two, self-regulate. I say self-regulate because it is when the NJC fails to self-regulate that regulations will come from outside. That's it.
Thank you very much. It was nice talking with you. Like we said, it's not yet over until it is over.
Absolutely.
It is a developing story, and the message here is that there's a lot of misconception out there. The Chief Justice of Nigeria has not been removed from office.
Just suspended.
He has been suspended from office pending the determination of the case.
Exactly.
If he's judged innocent before the law,
he'll come back to his position.
Thank you, gentlemen. I've been speaking with Aliyu Abdullahi, Esquire and policy analyst. Thanks for being on Insight.
Thank you for having me.
And Johannes Toby Wojola, also a constitutional lawyer. Thanks for being on Insight.
The pleasure is mine.
Up next is a repeat of one of the segments of Media Review on Insight. Thanks.
This is a media review segment here on Insights. There has been increasing demand for consumer product and services, thereby creating a large market for the small and medium enterprises in the country. While some producers of these SMEs are crying, others are smiling to the bank. There are many questions demanding answers. And how much has the media helped to tell the story, or is telling the story? Well, to help us talk about SMEs, the challenges and awareness of in the SME sector, I have with me A.K. Ubiji. He's the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's start from the challenges. There are some challenges, financial challenges, social cultural challenges, so many facing the SMEs in Nigeria, and we know the SMEs are supposed to be like the live wire of a growing economic like this. So how much is your organization doing to help tell the story, help create awareness and address these challenges?
If you've looked at the objectives of the association since inception in March 1996 till date, one of the cardinal issues there is basically advocacy. To advocate for good policies that will help to develop the micro, small and medium enterprises. So we use our platform to tell the government, the authorities, from the federal to local government and even communities, that look, for any economy to do well, the SME sector is very, very key. But the SME sector cannot just stay on its own, survive on its own, or even stay on its own without support from the government around it, whether it is the federal government, state government, or local government. What do I mean by that? How many SMEs can set up their own power generating company, even buy a big generator? A lot of them cannot do that because they don't have the resources. So the issue of power is very, very important, and it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. Then we also have the issue of regulatory requirements. No SME can just go about producing any product without complying with set regulations. Where people that say the regulations is the government. Maybe you are in the food and beverage sector, you are in the key manufacturing sector. There are key government agencies that regulate that sector that will say, yes, this your product is certified because it has complied with set regulatory requirements.
I guess these SMEs can run to you for some of these challenges you are facing with regulators and maybe powers. Many of the challenges they have, they can run to you.
Absolutely. A lot of them, I mean, many of them are members. Okay. So that's why I said from inception that one of the key issues we take up is advocacy. Then how do we address these concerns? We address them through advocacy. Like the issue of power. In 2012, we had a PPD. What do I mean by PPD? Public Policy Dialogue. We realized shouting, using newspapers to abuse government does not solve the problem. So let's engage the government in a dialogue. Then, and which relevant government agency can we talk to that will take down our message? We did our research and realized that it's the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. That's the government agency that regulates that. So we took them up. What did we take them up on? If you can recall, go back, you see there was a time electricity tariff was increased from what it used to be. Before, after paying your electricity bill, you still have a fixed tariff. You pay, that one is fixed. Whether you consume light or you don't, you have to pay about 500 naira.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
But when the tariff was changed, it shut up.
It shut up, so they came to you, you complained, and you were able to...
Complained bitterly.
Have you been able to address it?
Yes. That's what led to us having a public policy dialogue with the NRC. And it was successful then. Because the top management of the NRC were invited to that PPD. And then not just telling them these are the complaints of our members. We did an evidence-based research. We went around the 6 political zones with a recognized research organization, NIPOS.
NIPOS, yeah.
They were paid to go around the 6 geopolitical zones, do a research to find out, this thing you are saying, is it correct? Why? This and that. And what they found out was quite alarming.
Okay, good to know that you have this advocacy in place and awareness. But sometimes people have looked at this as couple of tea drinking sessions, boardroom sessions that really doesn't yield the desired result. That's where the role of the media comes in. How much engagement do you have with the media to tell your story and to help spread it?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. There's no way you can do good advocacy without the media. The one on electricity tariff I told you, the media was hands-on.
Yeah.
They were up and doing. There's another one we did in 2016 on tax with Federal Inland Revenue Service. I'm sure for some time we've been hearing of people complaining of taxation here and there, local government, state government, federal. A lot of SMEs were complaining of that. We said, no, let's take it up. Then at the same time we're taking it up, the Federal Ministry of Finance set up a committee to look at the issue of taxation in Nigeria and come up with good policies that will help to address the concerns of stakeholders who are involved in that in Abuja and several cities they have around the country. We played a very important role in the new tax policy produced by the federal government. You understand? And the press helped. We had a PPD in Lagos. The chairman of FRS, Mr. Tunde Fala, was physically present, and the press really helped. All the major media houses in both the print and electronic, they covered it and gave it prominence. So in that case, the press is really very, very helpful.
Okay, besides the meetings and events where you invite the press to cover, I think you should engage the press more often. You know, when repetition has a way of sticking in people's minds. Well, that's aside. Let's talk about the ease of doing business quickly. Ease of doing business. So what's the role of your organization in helping ease the business process of these SMEs?
Yeah, some of the issues I mentioned earlier, when you're talking of ease of business in Nigeria or enabling business environment, we are all talking the same thing. Most of those things are also there. Like if your tax policy is not positive to SMEs, you understand? It will affect business. Even registration of businesses. What does it take you to register a business, register a company? NAFDAC, say NAFDAC before they give you NAFDAC number for your product. How do you go about it? All those things we say they should be business friendly. They should be business friendly so that more businesses will come out to register, and then all these things, when we have more businesses, it will impact on employment. More people will register their businesses, run it effectively, and have more people employed. So I think these are some of the things that inform the government setting up the enabling business environment.
And it's been working.
Yeah, they are working. But you know, it's not a one-day thing because most of these things, it have taken time to come on board. So it's overnight, you're not going to erase them. But they are gradually dismantling them.
Funding has also been a major cry for most of the organizations, the SMEs.
Yeah.
How much is the CBN helping in this regard? Very briefly.
Yeah, the CBN, for a long time, the CBN have been very helpful. Let me go down the memory lane. I'm sure you've heard about the SMILE scheme, Small and Medium Enterprises Equity Investment Scheme. It was a one-time CBN governor, Mr. Joseph Sanusi, that introduced that concept. And it was run for a while. I know the meaning of that. For banks, with the profit they are making, that let them pay back something to society. You understand? Let them pay back something to society. And with that, use it to invest in some company, invest in companies. So if you are giving that money, that's my scheme, if you are involved in it, you, the owner of the business, will have your 60%. Then the bank that's putting fund into your business will have 40. You know, then after a while, the bank will exit and leave your business for you. That's the way of injecting funds. But under Soludo, that concept was cancelled. Then subsequently, under Sanusi, who is currently an emir in Kano, he injected 220 billion for MSME. They call it MSME fund, which 60% is expected to go to women enterprises. That one, they've not even finished spending that money. And they cascaded it, not just development finance institutions like Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture disbursing the fund. Even the commercial banks will disburse some. You understand? Then some was also, each state that meet the requirements is given 2 billion to give to SMEs within its localities. But the problem we had on that is implementation, especially at the state level.
So where are we now?
That one is still ongoing.
Oh, it's still ongoing.
Then the information we are getting is that some states abuse that opportunity.
Okay.
Some, not all of them, some abused it. They use it as a way of pleasing their political acolytes.
Okay.
So that's the danger in that. But at the same time, government is still thinking far ahead. Look at it. They set up Development Bank of Nigeria to be a wholesale bank, a wholesale development finance institution. Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, they are retail because they lend direct to SMEs. But Development Bank of Nigeria does not lend direct.
Okay, let me just take this last question just before we round up. You mentioned that some of these SMEs are your members. That means there are some others who are not your members. There are many of these very small businesses. They don't know that they are supposed to register in your organization or any of similar SMEDAN or any other. So how do you get to reach these people? And there are so many all around.
First, let me correct one impression you have. SMEDAN is the government agency responsible for overseeing government interest in the development of SMEs in Nigeria.
Okay.
They don't have membership.
Okay.
Ours is a membership organization.
Okay.
Just as you have others also. Now, coming to your question, if there are SMEs or micro enterprise, because if I understand you very well, you are talking about micro enterprises.
Yes.
A lot of them are registered with us. But what we don't do, we don't force you to come and register with us. But when we do our public policy advocacy, many a times a lot of them come to, like when we did the electricity own, when we did the tax own, a lot of them joined because FRS gave us a waiver on accrued interest and penalties. Okay. And even extended the time given to comply. Okay, look at the one on VASE now, which would have stopped when it's extended with 2 months. Supposed to have ended in March, now extended to June. Okay. Just to give consideration to the challenges these sectors are facing, so that a lot of people will be able to pay and come into the tax net. You understand? So a lot of them, when the thing was advertised by FRS, that look, for you to enjoy this, that was after our PPD in 2016. Please, you must go through NASME. If you're not a registered member of NASME, forget about it. A lot of, from all over the country, we are calling. Okay. People call to register because they realize that if they don't go through us, it's going to be a Herculean task. Okay. A lot of them will be caught napping. And they registered. So these are avenues. These are just big public programs we've had. There are other smaller events. We have flyer, which we give out to people. We have a website and so on and so forth.
All right, good to know that your organization is making efforts to bring all these medium, small and micro enterprises together and work in their favor. Thank you very much, A.K. Obiji, Executive Secretary, Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. We've been talking SMEs in Nigeria, challenges, progress and prospects. The program is Media Review here on Insight. In a moment, I'll be back.
Well, Cecile, it's time to go home.
Yeah, it's time to go home. And from the discussion that we just saw, the discussion I had with
all the tantrums.
Yes, and all that. And on the Media Review segment, I am now a little more inspired to wanting to start an SME. I guess I have a retirement plan now. I know what to do. I'm going to start a small business.
Bottling water?
Yes, or sugarcane juice.
Well, we have come to the end of Insight today. We hope you had it insightful and you have been able to be taken to some perspectives regarding the developments in the public domain in Nigeria. Always big guest to the program. As usual, on behalf of all of us here, thanks for watching.